There is something younger women say about older men when no one is listening, something honest, raw, and deeply emotional. It's not about money, not about status, not even about looks. It's about something far more powerful, something that most men completely overlook. And once you understand this, it will change the way you see yourself forever. You see, behind closed doors, in quiet conversations, in late night talks with their closest friends, younger women often describe older men in a way that might surprise you. They don't talk about age the way society does. They don't measure it in numbers. They measure it in presence, in energy, in the way a man makes them feel when he walks into a room. And the number one thing they say is this: he feels safe, not just physically safe, but emotionally safe. Safe to be themselves, safe to express, safe to exist without judgment. And in today's world, that kind of safety has become incredibly rare. Because most younger men are still trying to prove something. They are chasing validation, competing for attention, reacting impulsively, driven by ego or insecurity. But an older man, when he has done the inner work, when he has faced his struggles, learned from his failures, and built his character, he carries a different kind of energy. It's calm, it's grounded. It doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. And that's what younger women notice. They notice how he listens not just to reply, but to truly understand. They notice how he doesn't rush things, how he's not desperate for attention, how he respects space, and in that space, they feel seen. Think about it for a moment. When was the last time someone made you feel completely at ease, without trying to impress you, without trying to control the moment? That feeling is rare. And older men who have matured emotionally, they naturally create that environment. Not because they are trying to win someone over, but because they have already found peace within themselves. Younger women are not just attracted to age, they are drawn to emotional stability, to a man who doesn't crumble under pressure, to someone who has faced life and didn't let it harden him, but instead made him wiser. And here's the truth most people won't tell you. It's not the years that make the difference. It's the growth within those years, because not every older man has this quality. Some grow older, but never grow up. They carry the same insecurities, the same need for validation, the same emotional chaos, and younger women can feel that instantly. But the ones who have done the work, the ones who have taken responsibility for their lives, who have learned patience, who have built discipline, who have faced heartbreak and still chose to grow. Instead of becoming bitter, those men, they stand out without even trying. And that's what younger women talk about. They talk about how he doesn't react emotionally to everything, how he doesn't play games, how his words match his actions, how he respects boundaries, not just his own, but theirs as well. And in a world full of confusion, mixed signals, and emotional instability, this kind of clarity feels like peace. Now, let me tell you something deeper. This feeling safe is not about being perfect. It's not about having everything figured out. It's about being real, being authentic, being someone who doesn't pretend to be more than they are, but also doesn't settle for less than they can become. Because when a younger woman feels safe with a man, she opens up. She becomes more feminine, more expressive, more alive. Not because she has to, but because she finally feels like she can. And that is powerful. It's not about control. It's not about dominance. It's about presence. A presence that says, you can be yourself here, and you won't be judged. And do you know why this matters so much? Because most people are tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of being misunderstood. So when they meet someone who brings peace instead of pressure, they hold onto that feeling. They remember it. They talk about it. Behind closed doors, they say, he's different, not because of his age, but because of his energy. And this is where everything changes, because if you are listening to this right now, this is not just about relationships. This is about who you are becoming as a person. Are you someone who brings calm or chaos? Do people feel relaxed around you, or do they feel like they have to walk on eggshells? Do you listen, or do you just wait for your turn to speak? These are the questions that define your presence. And presence is everything. Younger women don't fall for numbers. They fall for how you make them feel in your presence. And that feeling comes from your mindset, your emotional control, your self-awareness. This is why some older men are incredibly attractive, not because of how they look, but because of how they carry themselves. They are not chasing attention, they are not begging for approval, they are not trying to impress, they simply are. And that authenticity, that grounded energy is magnetic, but here's the challenge: becoming that man is not easy. It requires discipline, it requires self-reflection, it requires letting go of ego, facing your fears, and working on yourself every single day, even when no one is watching. Because this kind of presence cannot be faked. It is built slowly, quietly, through experience, through pain, through growth. And the beautiful part is anyone can become this man, no matter your age, no matter your past, because it's not about being older, it's about being wiser. And wisdom comes from learning, from evolving, from choosing growth over comfort. So when younger women say he feels safe, they are not just talking about him. They are describing a level of emotional maturity that most people are still searching for. And if you can become that, you won't need to chase anyone, because your presence will speak for you. There's something even deeper hidden inside that feeling of safety, something that younger women don't always say out loud, but they feel it strongly. When they talk about an older man who makes them feel safe, what they are really describing is a man who is in control of himself. Not controlling others, but in control of his emotions, his reactions, his desires, and that is rare. Because most people today are easily triggered, a small disagreement turns into an argument, a delay in a message creates anxiety. A misunderstanding becomes distance, everything feels unstable, unpredictable, but when a man has learned to master himself, his presence becomes steady. And that steadiness becomes addictive. Younger women notice how he doesn't overreact, how he doesn't panic when things don't go his way, how he doesn't try to force outcomes or rush emotions. He allows things to unfold naturally, and in that space, trust begins to grow. Think about it like this: if you were walking through a storm, who would you feel safer with? Someone who is panicking, shouting, losing control, or someone who stays calm, thinks clearly, and moves with confidence? That's exactly how emotional stability works in relationships. An older man who has faced life's storms, heartbreak, failure, rejection, uncertainty, and still learned to stay grounded becomes that calm in the storm. And younger women feel that instantly. They don't need words to explain it. They feel it in the way he speaks, in the way he handles silence, in the way he responds instead of reacts. And here's something powerful: he doesn't need constant attention. He's not checking his phone every second. He's not seeking reassurance all the time. He's not asking, "Do you still like me?" or "Where is this going?" every few days. He's secure within himself, and that security gives the other person room to breathe. Younger women often say in their private conversations that being with a man like this feels easy. Not boring, but peaceful. And there's a big difference, because many people confuse chaos with excitement. They think love has to be intense, dramatic, full of ups and downs, but over time that kind of energy becomes exhausting. What they truly crave is peace, a connection where they don't have to overthink everything, where they don't have to decode mixed signals, where they don't feel like they are constantly chasing clarity, and an emotionally mature man provides that without even trying. Because he is clear about who he is, he doesn't play games, he doesn't send confusing messages, he doesn't disappear and reappear. His actions are consistent, and consistency builds trust faster than anything else. Now listen carefully, this doesn't mean he is perfect. He has flaws, he has moments of weakness, he has things he is still working on. but the difference is he is aware of them. He takes responsibility. He doesn't blame others for everything that goes wrong. He doesn't run away from difficult conversations. He doesn't hide behind excuses, and that level of accountability is incredibly attractive because it shows strength. Real strength is not about dominance. It's not about controlling situations or overpowering others. Real strength is about self-control. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to act and when to wait, when to hold on and when to let go. And younger women, they feel that balance. They feel that this is someone who won't lose himself in emotions, but also won't suppress them. Someone who can be strong, but also understanding, and that combination is powerful. But let's go even deeper. There's another reason why this kind of man stands out. He values his time. He doesn't waste his energy on meaningless things. He has goals, he has direction, he has purpose. And because of that, he doesn't revolve his life around someone else. This is important because when a man makes someone else the center of his world too quickly, it creates pressure. It creates imbalance. It creates neediness. But an older, emotionally mature man, he already has a life. He invites someone into it. He doesn't depend on them to complete it. And that energy is incredibly attractive. Younger women often say that being with a man like this makes them feel respected, not just desired, but respected. And there's a difference. Desire can be temporary. It can be based on attraction, on excitement, on physical connection. But respect that goes deeper. Respect is built through actions, through consistency, through integrity. It's built when a man keeps his word, when he shows up when he says he will, when he treats others with kindness, not just when it's convenient, but always. And when a woman feels respected, she naturally gives more of herself emotionally. She trusts more. She opens up more. She invests more, not because she has to, but because she wants to. And this is what most people don't understand. Attraction is not just about what you do. It's about who you are consistently. It's about the energy you carry into every interaction. And older men who have done the inner work, they carry an energy that is calm, grounded, and secure. They are not trying to prove their worth. They know it. And when you know your worth, you don't chase. You attract, you don't force connections, you allow them to grow naturally. And that's exactly what younger women talk about behind closed doors. They say things like, he doesn't make me feel pressured. He makes me feel calm. I can actually be myself around him. And those words, they reveal something deeper. They reveal that what they truly value is emotional peace, not perfection, not status, not even age itself, but peace, and the man who can provide that will always stand out, because in a world full of noise, he becomes silence. In a world full of confusion, he becomes clarity, and in a world full of chaos, he becomes home. But here's the question you need to ask yourself: are you becoming that man? Or are you still reacting to life instead of mastering it? Because this journey, it's not about impressing others. It's about transforming yourself. And the moment you begin that transformation, everything around you starts to change. The way people see you, the way they feel around you, the way they respond to your presence, it all shifts. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. And here's where the truth becomes even more powerful, because what younger women feel about older men is not just admiration, it's a quiet sense of emotional relief. Relief that they don't have to carry the emotional weight of the connection alone. You see, one of the things they rarely say openly, but often feel deeply, is how exhausting it can be to deal with inconsistency. To feel like they always have to guess what someone is thinking, to question where they stand, to carry the burden of keeping things together. But when they meet a man who is emotionally mature, all of that pressure begins to fade, because he leads not with control, but with clarity. He communicates clearly. He expresses his intentions without confusion. He doesn't leave things hanging in uncertainty just to maintain power or mystery. And that kind of honesty creates emotional safety on a deeper level. Younger women often say, in those private, unfiltered conversations, that being with a man like this makes them feel taken care of, not in a material sense, but in an emotional sense. And that is something very few people truly understand. To feel emotionally taken care of means you don't have to constantly guard your heart. You don't have to be on edge. You don't have to prepare for disappointment. You can relax. You can trust. You can just be. And that feeling, it's incredibly rare. Because many people today are guarded, they've been hurt, they've been disappointed, they've learned to protect themselves sometimes so much that they struggle to connect at all. But an older man who has done the inner work, he understands this. He knows what it means to be hurt. He knows what it feels like to lose, to fail, to be misunderstood. And instead of letting those experiences close him off, he uses them to become more understanding, more patient, more present. And that presence creates a space where someone else can finally let their guard down. Now think about this: when someone feels safe, respected, and emotionally supported, what happens? They begin to give their best self. They become more open, more affectionate, more loyal, more connected, not because they are trying to impress, but because they feel secure enough to express. And this is something younger women deeply value, even if they don't always have the words to explain it. They don't just want excitement, they want depth. They want someone who can handle their emotions, not run away from them. Someone who doesn't see vulnerability as weakness, but as a part of being human. And an emotionally mature man, he understands that. He doesn't get overwhelmed by emotions. He doesn't shut down when things get difficult. He stays present. He listens, he understands, and most importantly, he responds with intention. And that builds a connection that goes beyond surface level attraction. But let's not ignore something important. This kind of connection requires responsibility. Because when someone feels safe with you, when they trust you, when they open up to you, you have a responsibility to handle that with care. And this is where many men fail. They create that initial sense of safety, but they don't maintain it. They become inconsistent. They take it for granted. They lose the very qualities that made them stand out in the first place. And when that happens, the trust breaks, the connection weakens, and the feeling that once felt so strong begins to fade. So understand this clearly: it's not enough to become that man for a moment. You have to remain that man consistently, day after day, in your actions, in your words, in your behavior, because consistency is what turns attraction into trust. And trust is what turns connection into something meaningful. Now here's another truth that younger women often feel, but don't always express directly. They feel inspired by a man who is growing. Not a man who thinks he knows everything, but a man who is always learning, always evolving, always striving to become better. Growth is attractive because it shows that you are not stuck. It shows that you are aware, that you are willing to improve, that you are not afraid to face your own flaws and work on them. And when a man is on that path of growth, he naturally elevates the people around him. He encourages better conversations, deeper connections, higher standards, and that energy is contagious. Younger women often say that being around a man like this makes them want to become better themselves. Not because they feel pressured, but because they feel inspired, and that is a completely different kind of attraction. It's not based on fear or insecurity, it's based on admiration, respect, connection. And when those elements come together, the relationship becomes something meaningful, something real, something that lasts. But here's the part that most people overlook this journey: it's not about attracting someone else. It's about becoming someone you are proud of. Because when you focus only on attraction, you may get attention, but you won't build something lasting. But when you focus on growth, on character, on becoming emotionally strong, grounded, and self-aware, You don't just attract people. You attract the right people, people who value what you bring, people who appreciate your presence, people who are aligned with who you are becoming, and that changes everything, because now it's not about chasing. It's about connection. It's not about proving your worth. It's about living it. And when you reach that point, you won't need to wonder what younger women say behind closed doors. Because their actions will show you, their respect will show you, their trust will show you. And most importantly, the way they feel in your presence will tell you everything you need to know. And now we arrive at the deepest part of this truth, the part that most men never fully understand, but the ones who do, they change their entire lives because of it. Because what younger women truly feel about older men, what they quietly admit when they are completely honest, is not just that he feels safe or calm or stable, it's that he feels real. In a world where so many people are pretending to be stronger than they are, happier than they are, more successful than they are, an emotionally mature man stands out because he is not pretending. He is comfortable in his own skin. He doesn't need to impress with exaggerated stories. He doesn't need to prove his worth through constant validation. He doesn't need to wear a mask to be accepted. He shows up as he is, and that authenticity, it's rare. Younger women often say that being around a man like this feels refreshing, because there is no pressure to perform. No hidden agendas, no emotional games, just honesty, clarity, and presence. And that creates something incredibly powerful: trust without fear. You see, when someone senses that you are real, truly real, they begin to relax in a different way. They stop questioning your intentions. They stop looking for signs of inconsistency. They stop preparing for disappointment. Because your energy feels aligned, your words match your actions, your behavior matches your values. And in a world where so many people say one thing and do another, this kind of alignment feels almost extraordinary. But here's where it goes even deeper. Being real doesn't mean being perfect. It means being honest about your imperfections. It means being able to say, I don't have everything figured out, but I am working on it. It means being able to admit when you're wrong, to take responsibility to grow. And that level of humility, it's powerful because it shows confidence, not insecurity. It shows that you don't need to protect your ego because your identity is not fragile. And younger women, they feel that strength. They feel that this is someone who is not afraid to be human. And when someone feels safe enough to be human with you, that's when real connection begins. Now listen closely. This is not about becoming someone else. This is not about changing your personality or trying to fit into an image. This is about removing everything that is not truly you. The ego, the insecurity, the need for approval, the fear of being judged, because underneath all of that is your true self. And when you start living from that place, everything changes. The way you speak becomes more natural. The way you connect becomes more genuine. The way people respond to you becomes more authentic. And that authenticity, it creates a different kind of attraction. Not the kind that fades quickly, but the kind that deepens over time. Younger women often say that with a man like this, the connection feels effortless. Not because there are no challenges, but because there is no confusion. They know where they stand. They know what he represents. They know what to expect. And that clarity, it removes anxiety. It replaces overthinking with understanding. It replaces doubt with trust. And when that happens, the relationship becomes something peaceful, something stable, something real. But let's not forget something important. All of this, it requires courage. Because being real, being authentic, being emotionally open, it's not easy. It means facing your own fears. It means letting go of the need to control how others see you. It means accepting that not everyone will understand you and being okay with that. And that's where true confidence is built, not from external validation, but from internal acceptance. From knowing who you are and standing in that truth without apology. And when a man reaches that level, he doesn't just attract attention. He commands respect, not through force but through presence, not through dominance but through authenticity. And that is what younger women feel. They feel that this is someone who is not trying to be something he's not, someone who is grounded, someone who is real, and in a world full of illusions that feels like truth. So when they speak about him, when they share their thoughts in those quiet, private conversations, they don't just talk about his age. They talk about how he makes them feel safe, calm, respected, inspired, and most importantly, understood. Because at the end of the day, that is what every human being is searching for: to be understood without having to explain everything, to be accepted without having to pretend, to be valued without having to prove themselves constantly. And when you can offer that not just to others, but to yourself, you become rare, you become different. You become the kind of person people don't forget, and that is the real reason why some older men stand out. Not because of time, but because of who they chose to become within that time. And now, as this journey comes to an end, there is one truth I want you to carry with you, not just in your mind, but deep within your life, because everything you've heard, every feeling, every insight, every realization, it all comes back to one simple, powerful idea. It was never about age. It was never about chasing attention, impressing others, or trying to become someone you're not. It was always about becoming a man who is at peace with himself. Because when you are at peace within, your presence changes. You stop forcing conversations and start creating connections. You stop seeking validation and start living with quiet confidence. You stop chasing people and start attracting those who truly align with you. And that is what younger women are really talking about behind closed doors. They're not just describing a man, they're describing a feeling of safety, of calm, of honesty, of being understood without needing to explain everything. And here's the most important part: you don't build that feeling overnight. You build it in silence, in the choices no one sees, in the discipline you maintain when it's hard, in the way you control your emotions when everything inside you wants to react, in the way you choose growth over comfort again and again. Because real transformation is not loud. It's quiet. It happens when you decide to take responsibility for your life fully. No excuses, no blame. No shortcuts, just honesty, just effort, just growth. And as you continue on that path, something incredible begins to happen. You no longer worry about what others think. You no longer question your worth. You no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. Because you know who you are. And when you know who you are, your energy speaks before you even say a word. People feel it. They feel your calm. They feel your strength. They feel your authenticity. And the right people, they are naturally drawn to it. Not because you chased them, but because you became someone worth finding. So don't focus on being older. Focus on being wiser. Don't focus on being attractive. Focus on being grounded. Don't focus on being desired. Focus on being real, because in the end, it's not the man who tries the hardest that stands out. It's the man who has done the deepest work within himself. And when you become that man, you won't need to wonder what younger women say behind closed doors anymore. Because their respect will show it, their trust will prove it, and the way they feel in your presence will say everything without a single word. So take this moment and ask yourself honestly, who am I becoming? And if the answer is not yet the man you want to be, then start today. Not tomorrow, not someday, today, because the life you want, the respect you seek, the connection you desire, it all begins with the man you choose to become. And that choice is yours.